over a poster workshop today to just give you the best like tips and tricks for how to create an academic poster. Some of you have done this before, some of you have never done this before, but I really want to go through just sort of why we do this, how we do this, and best practices. And then I'll give some time at the end for you if you have like a draft of something to work on, or if you want to start a draft. Okay. All right, and then this is sponsored by the Gamma Mu chapter of Delta Omega, and I'll tell you a little bit in a few minutes about the poster competition we have coming up. All right, so I'm going to go over some key poster elements, what you want to include on there. Again, every place you submit to might be a little bit different in what they call a section or the sections they require, but I'm going to go over the main components. I'll go over some programs to use that might be helpful for you, designing graphics and how we include those, good and bad poster examples, so you can sort of critique those a little bit better, and then we'll go through some poster practice. All right, so first of all, I want to say, nice sort of a promotion. We have our Delta Omega poster contest. We have this every year. It's usually about this time of year. It's going to be due by March 24th. So you will submit a 250-word abstract and a poster as one slide that's embedded in PowerPoint with like a less than 5-minute voiceover. So basically, you have your slide that includes all your poster components, and then you want to make sure that you have a voiceover where you just go over the main findings, results, discussion, things like that. So that'll be due by the 24th, and if you are selected as a winner from our competition, you have a possibility to then apply to the National Delta Omega competition and present APHA. Jordan is actually here, who was our winner last year as an undergrad winner for APHA, and so presented in Boston in November. So this is very possible. We've sent people for the last 6-7 years to the national one, so I'm pretty confident in our ability to do that. Any questions on that? Okay, if you do get selected at that national level, you do get a $500 award from Delta Omega to help cover traveling costs and poster printing costs, things like that. All right, so some key poster elements. What should you include? So some overall tips about this is to make sure you have all the important information be readable at about 10 feet away. So when people are walking around a poster session, they might be further away from your poster. You want to have at least like the title and some important points or graphs at a larger font size so they can be read or seen at least. So someone is interested and attracted and goes into the form. They suggest having this main title in 1.5 inch sans serif font too, and you can find sans serif and serif font on your Word documents, and it's pretty easy to select them. I would again recommend having fairly readable text, not super thick text. You want to have about 300 to 800 words total in your poster. It depends on the overall size of your poster, but that's a good reference to go to. Try to have your text clear as much as possible, limited jargon. If you're going to use jargon, just make sure it's, particular to the specific conference you're going to. So if I'm writing about eating disorders and I'm going to an eating disorder conference, I may not need to explain everything, and that may not be jargon for that audience. Whereas if I go to an overall public health audience, it may be a little bit more jargon heavy, and I'll need to explain that in layman's terms. Try to use bullet points, numbering, and headings and subheadings. If you've taken my Writing for Public Health Audiences class, which I think 3 of you have, you will know a little bit about the use of headings and subheadings to basically attract your attention to it. You say this is the discussion, people will know what to expect. Clean layout, use boxes, and allow white and background space. You want to not have every single inch of it. Those are overall tips. And again, stop me if you have questions. So this is sort of a good layout to just sort of look at as, what you might want to include and where. and see the flow of it. You can have a descriptive and interesting title. This is something I've now learned to love, of creating interesting, fun titles. Jenna knows about this with our current one, trying to make sure that they stand out, they attract attention. You don't want it to be too long. You don't want to be too short that it's not descriptive either. You'll include your author names and affiliations. So who's writing on this, and where are they from? Abstract is sometimes included, not always. I have presented at more conferences where you don't include the abstract than you do. So just keep in mind that. Then you'll have your introduction, your methods, results, discussion, references, and acknowledgement. And you'll want to include appropriate graphics, tables, or figures throughout. And I'll talk to you a little bit about those as well. So I wanted to provide an in-depth look at each section. Your abstract, you're going to have a full or condensed version of the abstract that you submit. So if you submit a 250 to 300 word abstract, you may not want all of that to be on your poster. Because again, your poster should be about total 300 to 800 words. So you might have a medium-sized paragraph for your abstract, and then your introduction, another medium-sized paragraph, about 5 to 7 sentences. You're going to have your background. So what is this topic about? Gaps in literature. So someone's done a study on this, but they haven't looked specifically at college students, or they haven't looked specifically at this measure that we're using, something like that. And then your purpose and aim or aims. So with this study, we propose to do this. We're going to do a secondary analysis of that. Our exploratory aim is this. So state it out really clear. Sometimes you can even have, it numbered 1 and 2 for specific aims, so people can see it better. In your methods, this should include your participants. So who are you recruiting? Who did you recruit? What was the inclusion, exclusion criteria? Any specific parts that you might want to talk about? There's this specific population. Did you recruit from a significant geographic area, or something more constrained? What was your recruitment process like? How did you do that? You want to include like IRB or anything like that as well there. And then measures. So if you sent them a survey, what were all the measures in that survey? If you had them do a specific task or something, what did that look like? Is that validated? Provide some information on that. Your results include demographics or descriptive. So your recruited participants, what did you find out? The majority of participants were college aged, with an educational background of this, race, ethnicity breakdown, things like that. You'll have your main results. You do not need to have all of your results in here, but the main finding, what is most interesting. And secondary results if pertinent. So if you had exploratory aim where you were doing sensitivity analysis and you want to look at how this looks in like a specific group, that's where you want to put that. Your discussion is findings are placed in context. So in context of literature, in context of policy, in context of current public health practice, something like that. And then also within your discussion, you're going to be saying what are future directions that we should do. What's missing from this study? We talked about gaps at the beginning. What do we still leave for gaps for now? Because we always do. References, you're not going to have all the references you might have in a paper, but everything that needs a reference on here should have a reference. It's really difficult when you get to this part of the post. It's like, I didn't leave enough space here, so I'm gonna have to make this really tiny one. And then acknowledgement. So if you have someone you need to thank, if you need to thank a specific organization for helping you recruit through there, whatever you feel needs to be in there. And those acknowledgements might be different than a paper acknowledgement too, just because there might be different ones. Are there questions in the overall format overall? So some programs to use. I want to speak specifically about free options because there are so many options that are free. You should not have to pay to do this. Now, you're going to print your poster, which you do not have to do for a competition, but you will have to do if you go to APHA. That will cost, and I can talk to you about options for that if and when the time comes. But at this point, you can use free options. So PowerPoint option, this is what I use a lot. This is what you'll do for our competition. And again, you can use some more stylistic approaches if you're going to APHA. But there are also options that you can use to make that PowerPoint look nicer too if you want. But you basically use a blank canvas, put in boxes, put in text, and insert graphics. You can use this with Microsoft Office or Google Slides. You want to use some available templates that are there, or just pick a specific color that makes sense, and color scheme, and then just create your own templates. Slides Go has templates. So who's familiar with Slides Go? Okay, so this is a very helpful resource that if you can get 2 templates for free automatically, and then if you just sign up, then you can get more, but you don't have to pay for them. So if you type in the search poster, you will get a lot of these different templates. So this is just a poster template. It has like a specific style. It can be downloaded right into PowerPoint, and you can go from there. So you don't have to create all your boxes by yourself. This can be a nice option, and this can still be applicable for competition because so that's something to think about. And I can go through that later too if anyone wants. All right. There's also Canva. How many of you use Canva? Canva, great. I really like Canva. I think it's great. I think sometimes, if we compare it to Slides Go, this is maybe a little bit more academic. This is maybe a little bit more fun, but you can still customize it as needed. But they do have some templates available. They may not have as many templates available on Canva as they do on Slides Go, but you can still search by poster. And again, Canva is predominantly free. I think you've all used it at this point. With trying to find graphics for this, there are going to be some paid graphics and some unpaid graphics. As much as you want to try to keep unpaid, go for the unpaid ones. But again, you might be pulling in some of your tables and figures too, which are very easy to upload into Canva. Questions so far on that? Has anyone started a poster they want to work on this year? Or use any of these options to do before? It can be very tricky, yeah. And I've often gone for the Canvas style poster, which Jordan did in the fall, which basically is a Canvas company that you just upload your poster. It's actually cheaper than somebody else. I would recommend that.
So much easier to transport. You can fold it up and put it back in order. $4. Put that whole everything you can put back and carry on it. And what was the name of that? That's Spoon. Just make sure whenever you try to order it, correct when you plan ahead, or you are going to pay this thing, yes, like I did, because I ordered it like for Boston. Like so a month would probably be good. I think if they stay like 2 weeks, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so that is a really good option. Now, one of my conferences was in Prague, and I'm like, I am not taking a poster in one of those rolls all the way over. And that's when I found that. And you can actually get printable fabric from there, but part of that is the poster fabric, which is really great. So it's a good option to think about. All right. And I've mostly used PowerPoint. I'm using Slides Go for PowerPoints more often now. And so when I do my next post, I would probably use a template from there as at least as a starting base because I have a really hard time. Okay, so if that's you, that's fine. So thinking about design, we want to make sure that this is eye-catching. What I highly recommend you do first is a thumbnail sketch. So this is basically, you know, how people put together like videos or cartoons or things like that. They always do thumbnail sketches before because they want to know how it's going to flow. This is basically what you're going to do. You just take a sheet of paper and you make your big poster box and you say, okay, here's going to be my title, my subtitle. Here's like my introduction here. There's going to be a picture here or a figure here, methods, results here, discussion, acknowledgement, and references. And you can see how it's broken down with text, graphic, text, graphic. If you've been in my writing class, you know that you should always try to include the graphic right beside the text to reinforce it. There are lots of different options. You can have a bigger graphic. You can have, you know, some little ones if you're trying to show that this is what happened when we created, like added this die to something. So it can follow a lot of different formats. Think about the number of tables you have, the number of figures you have, what you want to be on there, and how you want to make it eye-catching too. So I would start with that first. Again, it depends on like the time you have before something, but it's always good. Any questions? So landscape is a more common format requirement than portrait, but always check on the conference website ahead of time because I have last minute switched something to portrait, which is really not fun to do after you've laid it out. I would highly recommend. It was basically when I was ready to print that I realized mistake. With all requirements prior to starting, it was just a mistake. A lot of this is stuff that I learned the hard way, so I'm trying to make sure you don't learn the hard way. All right, so again, poster example of portrait, poster example of landscape. This is often more common. They're going for the portrait a little bit more to save space. So you can make, you know, the overall width of it smaller. You can go up and down more. So just keep that in mind that there are some conflicts. All right, choosing and adapting tables and figures. You might be writing a paper at the same time you're working on this poster. You may not, but how do you take something that is paper format that might be, you know, table that goes on for like a page and a half and put that into an easily poster format? You may have to cut down on some things. You may have to write more of the demographics and just put a small demographics table in there. You may have to select, hey, this table is really important, that one's not, or this figure can represent it better. So you have to be careful about that. The other recommendations are make sure the figures are high quality, a resolution of at least 300 dpi, because if you get below that, when it prints out, it'll be blurred. I have done this too. These are important lessons. Again, use graphics to reinforce the message. You're going to be saying, these are my results, see table 2. You want table 2 to be right there. Try to incorporate a variety of figures if it's possible, sometimes not. You can include tables, charts and graphs, figures. Those are the most common you see when you look at posters, but you can also include pictures if you're going to say, hey, this topic is about this. I was at APHA in the fall and there was like a really cool poster that just had like the side profile of a pregnant woman. And then it had like some bits and pieces, but that was the main poster, was like this overall background. And it drew you in because it was really interesting. So think about how you can incorporate different things of media. 20-point font for tables, that's readable at about 2 to 3 feet away. This is not always possible. You may have limited space, but try to do that as much as you can. At least have that table heading in 20 or above font. That way someone can see it and then go in to read. If people may not be like right up here, the poster, they're gonna be floating by. Again, if you're doing this for our poster competition, we're gonna have you submit it. Our judges are gonna be able to look at it on a computer and see it very in depth. But someone at a poster conference is not gonna be able to like, fight between people to get right there. All right, and this is just an example of a tape I have, and just like how you break it down. Again, this is from like a little bit ago. I would maybe present it differently now, but it's just an example. All right, so figures can be images, maps, flowcharts, line and bar graphs, photographs, and diagrams. And you should always have like a figure caption beside it. So title, like a terms at the end, or hey, we're missing this many people or something like that. Some other graphic tips, and these are things I've learned as well. Use vector images, and again, I have no idea what this to begin with, but you want to look for like .ai, .eps, .svg, and some PDF forms. This creates a better resolution rather than these raster images, which are the .png, .jpeg, .gif, and .tif, which are the ones we're more familiar with. But the problem is, when you use those raster images, you come up with this. And it's pixelated and it doesn't print out well. I've done this. This is what you want to go for. This is also helpful if you're submitting figures to journals. Sometimes they will specifically ask, like, this has to be a .eps. Or they will like, that will come back and you have to change that. Check out Creative Commons or other free sources, Canva for images, and if you're not using solely like enormous figures. Questions on that? Yeah.
This is something actually very quality, no matter what computer science you do, how you say it.
Yep.
So I just want to know something I probably but the DPI and
you should be able to right click to see the resolution on that, but it can be a little challenging depending on the program. But you should be able to find that out from looking specifically at the edge.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other question that I had was, are you able to, we talk about raster versus vector imagery in geography a lot. And are there ways to convert images that are in one format?
You should be able to. So you should be able to convert like JPEG to an PDF, because I have done that before. Like I have to go back through it, and like I'm a visual person, so I have to see how to do it. But I have done it before. It should be possible, and it just creates a cleaner.
Okay.
Any other questions? I'm going to provide some poster examples now. So some of the things I like to do, especially in my writing class, are to like look at what's been done, look at some bad examples, look at some good examples, and learn from those. I learned from my first poster where I completely misconstrued the size of the poster, and I thought that the size of the poster had to be the same size as the entire podium they were giving me. So I printed out this massive poster, and it was hanging off the sides, and it was not my proudest moment. But it's okay. You learn from this, and from my experience, you can also learn. What is, you don't like, you're not going to be able to read like the writing, but just look at the overall layout here. What is good? What would you change? Yes.
Very good.
Yeah. Do you think this is within that 800 like word limit or word guideline? Probably over. Yeah, I'd say so too. What are your thoughts on the combination of graphics with the text? How does that work? Yeah. exactly. It's not clear, so it's not reinforcing like your working memory when you're like reading the text and seeing the image. They recommend usually about 60% text and 40% images if you're thinking about the balance over all of this. So this, I would say, is pretty text heavy. You've got, some bigger graphics over here, but it's not balanced. It's really not balanced well, and I'd still say it's probably like maybe 20 to 30% graphic. So really think that that's why those thumbnail sketches are really helpful, because you can see ahead of time how. Here's another example. What is good and what would you change? Again, just looking at overall layout.
This one's better. Yeah. Follow the ideas and with clear mind, you're not distracted by things.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can distinctly see the different sections. There's a specific box for introduction. Here's the box for method, discussion. There are results over here with the graphic. It's demarcated much better. What other thought?
For me,
Yeah, a little too long and also maybe a little too small. You want that title to be bigger. Again, people see it, people want to comment and read. Anything else?
ordering.
Yeah, exactly. So again, people want to think logically. So you've got introduction methods, you've got discussion, and over here is the results. It doesn't flow in a logical manner. Again, this is a vertical one, so it changes that. And probably what happened is they had a long method section, couldn't fit this down there. But it still doesn't read logic. You're going to get to the discussion before you're going to get to it. Unless you happen to see that the results are there and go over it first. You want to make it as easy as possible for people to poster. Because again, they might spend 2 minutes at your poster, they might 5 and 5 seconds. It depends on what's going on, how busy it is, whether food's being offered, and they're just like eating food while they're walking past the posters and pretending to be interested. That happens too. Drawing people in, having a speech prepared that you can talk to them about keeps them there longer and keeps them there. What about this one? What is good and what would you change?
I guess it might just personal, but I don't like the post that.
Yeah.
It's just, it might be a personal thing, but I don't.
Yeah,
I would prefer it to be a lighter background with a darker text.
that's a good point.
Yeah. Fine.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And what we find too is light writing on dark backgrounds is harder for people to read. So again, we don't want to make it harder for people to read. The light layout might be nice, but there are different ways you can choose that, or you can put like white space here instead of they put like a little bit darker boxes here, and that still makes it difficult. What else? What else do you like? What else would you change? Yeah, so it catches your eye. This is visually more appealing than maybe some of the others we've looked at. It's maybe not as typical as you see, and I'll show you some non-typical examples too. But it brings your attention into it, and there's a central focus here. Like, hey, I'm going to show you about my topic. These are part of the crowd. This is what we're talking about. Anything else you like or change? Some other poster designs, because again, like all posters can be very different. There are some others that you can do. You can do something completely different, like the one I said at APHA. Sometimes, especially for your first poster, you would follow a very typical format because it's intimidating to just do a post anyway. But this is just an example of another one. What do we like about this one? What do we not like about this one? This is an actual example.
I like the aesthetic, but it's very busy.
Yeah.
For me, it makes it hard to know where my eye.
Exactly. So it's a really cool aesthetic. It's I like the colors. It's great, but it's really difficult. Like, where do I go first? What do I read here? Here, the methods over here, but what's down here? I'm not sure. The other thing I would say, it's harder to see, but at least you can see some of the text up here. It's not necessarily the kind of text we would always recommend because it's hard to read. And you might be in different audience. You might be in an audience that it has a lot of familiarity with like more jargon heavy terms. And so when they're seeing that in different fonts, it might be easy, but it may not be. So you want to think about trying to make sure it's as readable. What else do you like or dislike?
First, you guys might already select palettes, and there you can select certain things that are like red or minus,
Right.
like something that's overlapped and beginning.
Yeah, no, that's a great one. I didn't know that existed. I think about like the use of colors like in posters and things like that. But we really need to like be thinking about it in terms of what colorblindness. And also, what goes well, what brings attention, what emotions do colors have and evoke in different people. And so really thinking about all those different things. That's really good to know. I will have to look up. What else?
Oftentimes you put gray background. So there's like different kinds of things.
Right. Yeah, that's really useful. All right, so we're going to do some poster practice now, and I can also answer any questions you have. What I would suggest is begin with a thumbnail sketch to like where does the text and where does the graphic go, and then start with everything you want to say, and then cut to the main point. It is much easier to cut back than to add. So sometimes it's difficult, but it's still going to be easier because hey, this is all I have, and then you can see the main points a little bit clearer. Right, so I am going to, and again, thank you, and look out for our Gamma Mu poster competition. That should be announced already. And again, you just have to submit the 250 word abstract and the like PowerPoint slide with that embedded. So I'm going to stop recording now.